Pull up a chair, boy heavy.
Had to bring a little 90s East Coast with it.
Make night neon, crack bars through tar.
Man, I like the AI music.
Yes.
Now it won't. We've always been blaming the copyright stuff, pushing our YouTube channel down.
Now
there's no excuse.
Now it's all the Heath reels. That's what it is.
I can't help that I wax poetic
Yeah.
when it comes to healthcare reform.
Even my mother-in-law is like, he's got the facts, you got the color.
Well, welcome back to another edition of Pints Politics. What are we drinking today?
This is Dirty Bastard, which is what set off good with the 90s hip-hop, right?
Right. Founders Dirty Bastard, Scottish style ale. What do you think?
I think it tastes good, actually. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it
says rich caramel notes, malty sweetness.
Kind of like a Killian's Red, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it fits the time of year. You know, it's brisk, cold outside, and this is a good little
So we got
winter beer.
Thank you, Comer Distributing, for sponsoring the episode once again since inception.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Chip.
Yes.
You know, when we're in the doldrums of getting actually 2 listeners, you were sticking with us, so we appreciate it.
We're up almost to 2.5.
So first segment, we're going to be discussing sort of our week in review, what's been going on, to include the hemp-derived products debate that was on the floor, full display for everybody to the live stream. That was going on Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. And we also have a special guest on this episode, Representative Greg Ford out of District 98, which represents Somerville, Dorchester County, which is the district that I grew up in as a young lad. And we're going to have him join us. He does have he's got a personal compelling story. He's got a son who deals with epilepsy. He also has professional experience with hemp farming. And again, the personal compelling story, the professional experience and expertise really added to the discussion on the floor Wednesday night in the House chamber. And I think along with some voices from Representative Gatch and others, I thought it changed the tone of that debate.
Absolutely. When a freshman can walk away with no questions, then what else can be done?
Yeah. So, but let's start off. I know my week was on Tuesday. We had full committee, as we talked last week. Again, we passed out favorably the medical non-compete. And folks, all this says is hospitals can sign physicians to an employment agreement of 2 or 3 years. Currently, right now, in that employment agreement for 2 or 3 years of work, they have a non-compete. So if something were to go wrong, let's say it's just not a conducive environment where that physician doesn't feel like it's the right place for him to work.
Like if they mandate COVID shots.
Right. There is a non-compete clause in that employment agreement that says you cannot work here in this geographic area of, say, 20, 30 miles. And a lot of times, I'm just going to say that's bullshit. It just is. And the problem with this particular case is, especially in rural South Carolina, when you may have 2 pediatricians, if that pediatrician leaves the area, you now, patients suffer in that area, right? We're talking about access and also quality of care. So just trying to give a little more medical freedom to our physicians to where they can work as they please. And again, this bill does allow for reasonable clawback. So if the hospital, let's say, paid for relocation expenses from a physician that came from Ohio, and valued that at $20,000. If the physician breaks the employment agreement, the facility can claw that back.
Yeah.
Right? That's reasonable. And so there are some reasonable provisions in there. I know Prisma Healthcare is one of the main larger systems in our state that doesn't even use non-competes. And so they came and spoke heavily in favor of this legislation back in our subcommittee a few weeks ago. And we're going to have that bill come onto the floor. Also in 3M, we passed out favorably with, I believe, 10 amendments, the parental rights. That's a hot button issue, not just in our state, but across the country. And this basically just re-emphasizes, enumerates, but also raises parental rights to a fundamental right that we have as parents, the right to have a say-so in the education, upbringing, and medical decisions of our children. So
It's a novel idea, but maybe people will buy on it.
right. So that's what I had going on just in committee. Did y'all have anything going on in LCI this week?
No LCI. Well, if we did, I wasn't there on Wednesday. Tuesday.
Establishment hack.
No, Tuesday it was focusing on getting ready because I had Shazam coming up on subcommittee on Thursday, and I had to fly out very early on Wednesday morning, fly up to D.C., did a breakfast with actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a couple of members of...
Hold on, let me interrupt here. And this guy is probably famous for being Robin on the Batman series.
I think most people know him as the kid in 30 Rock from the Sun, or Third Rock from the Sun, the TV show.
And he was also in
Looper,
Inception.
Inception.
Inception with Leonardo
He played
DiCaprio.
Snowden.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, world-renowned actor that is a father. I met a couple of years, or about a year and a half ago, while in D.C. For an event. He's working on a film with Netflix. Did a little bit of interviewing with him there. So whenever we came in, you don't expect like an actor to like know who you are, but he actually knew who I was, so that was shocking.
He probably had a team that prepped him. Had like that advanced team's like, hey, this is Representative Guffey. Just like,
Now he called me Brandon, by the way.
Oh, good, good.
But so we did breakfast there, had a little bit of discussion with a few of the senators because we were in the Senate breakfast chamber of Capitol Hill, and then went to a press conference, met with additional senators.
Another press conference.
And this was all about sunsetting Section 230, which was written by our very own Senator Lindsey Graham, and co-sponsored by Senator Dick Durbin, so it is bipartisan as well. But as soon as I got done with that, I headed to the airport, hopped on a plane, flew back to Columbia, drove back, and made it back while y'all were still in session.
To get back in the scrum. That was the hemp debate, man, I tell you. And so Wednesday, you were in D.C. chumming up with the D.C. elites and pinkies out while we were down in the trenches fighting for what's right.
Meanwhile, you were in the Senate and other people were fighting. I'm just kidding.
So
Thursday, I had Shazam come through.
Okay.
And it passed through subcommittee. So it will come to full committee. I'm not sure if that's going to be this week or next week. But that is my bill that I'm trying to lead to stop the addictive social media harms.
And that's like that endless scrolling stuff.
Endless scrolling, but it opens up liability for companies that are going to be grossly negligent, which we have seen. Matter of fact, starting this week, Mark Zuckerberg will have to appear in the first civil trial against big tech. So that will be huge. No, well, mine is not a bellwether, so I'm one of the hundreds that have filed a lawsuit. But Social Media Victims Law Center in California are the ones who are leading this trial. They're the ones who allowed the discovery to where we can actually see all the things that they are doing right now. But they have 3 cases, which are the bellwether cases that they kind of push forward. And then depending on the results of them, depends on how ours go from there.
Gotcha. And so Wednesday was a busy day. We had the chemical abortion bill come out of judiciary onto the House floor. This is rescheduling 2 chemicals that have been used. And folks, I thought Weston Newton, took the well and said it best. This bill is effectively closing a loophole in the heartbeat bill. So when we passed the heartbeat bill 2.0, because the first one was challenged in court and deemed unconstitutional, we went back in our first term and passed heartbeat 2.0.
Right, and we had these amendments on the floor, but we were worried about what's going to get through a committee or get through the court. And then we knew that we were going to be coming back. So all the people that say, oh, well, this was not far enough, this was not exactly what they wanted, this was the pickup from where we were last year. once we got the court approval.
Yeah, and, I'm always a little bit questionable or skeptical when I see members who are traditionally pro-life voting against. Again, this is closing a loophole.
Jonathan Hill told him that it was bad, though.
I don't know who
the
told
bad
him it was
bills.
bad. And again, I think I've even seen on social media here locally where folks have said this will do nothing. Right?
I had someone call me.
And
tell me
again,
that.
folks, I don't know.
I mean, the question is, will it save one
life.
additional life?
One life. Correct.
And then you want to kill it? So who's really pro-life if that's your stance?
Well, and again, look, folks, we're not offering guarantees that this bill will do what we intend it to do, right? But hot damn it, we're going to try.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And like Guffey said, if it saves one baby, two babies, three babies, it's a step in the right direction. I think a lot of what we're seeing is political gamesmanship on a few folks' part, because it does take some wind out of the sails of the crowd who is fundamentally wanting to, and I don't remember what the bill name was that Representative Harris had.
Equal protection.
Right.
Which is the author is the guy who filed the ethics complaint against us.
Okay. And
It might be in Harris's name, but it's Mark Corral is his big push.
Yeah. And so again, by passing the chemical abortion bill that we passed on Wednesday, which effectively closes a loophole that folks were using to circumvent, get these chemicals shipped to them, and then taking it after the heartbeat was detected to hemorrhage and lose pregnancy. This now further defines that's a crime, and then what the accountability measures are. So
Yep.
I think, again,
It's a very busy week this week.
yeah, so we had all that, and then after that, we took on the hemp derived
Hemp bill.
intoxicants. Yep,
Yep.
and man, that thing was just as
Contentious.
yeah, man. It encouraged a lot of debate on both sides, and it didn't seem like it was a Republican, Democrat issue.
No.
It just seemed like a lot of folks had opinions about what's what, or hey,
What's the true intent here?
yeah, like hey, I got an aunt who takes a gummy to help her sleep. Hey, I got a colleague at work that uses it. He's got low back pain, and it helps him. They don't use it to, a party drug or go out on the town. It's just, and so there was a lot of those types of stories, a lot of those types of nuances to this conversation. None more compelling than our colleague out of Somerville, Representative Greg Ford.
Which we will have on later, and hopefully he can explain it a little bit more. He does know all the lingo, so
Yeah.
hopefully.
Man, you start talking about cannabinoids, that's like two syllables too much for us, But no, seriously, he provided a lot of technical expertise to this issue that we just didn't have prior to going into, the chamber that day. So,
Right.
He informed the room, and again, he was swimming upstream for a little bit, and at the end of the day, this bill has been recommitted to House Judiciary, which basically means we asked that committee to do some more work, right? And hopefully we'll see not only staff but members of Judiciary work with Greg, bring in law enforcement and SLED,
Yes.
and try to make the best bill possible to achieve the outcome that we want with the legislative intent, right?
Yep.
So we look forward to sharing that interview with you here in the next segment.
The full ban, what happened with it?
We adjourn debate.
Adjourned debate.
Yep.
So we really need to get with our judiciary to make sure that we are addressing this issue, which I'm confident that whatever's going to come out will be more for all.
Yeah,
involved.
and don't forget, folks, we passed a bill primary sponsored by Chris Wooten out of Lexington last year that is over in the Senate right now. We've talked about it before. It's sitting in Senator Johnson, his subcommittee on Senate Ag, and also our very own Wes Clymer also is chair of Ag. So in talking with both Michael Johnson and Wes Clymer, I feel confident that they are going to give us a bill to, and again, I think from the outset, everyone wants age restrictions on these products. We don't want our kids to be able to walk into, I don't care if it's a Harris Teeter, an ABC store, or a 7-Eleven. We don't want our kids to be able to have access to these, purchase these, and then consume them on a bottom line level. That's what we want. So look forward to whether it's another bill coming out of the House or the Senate taking up the House bill and getting it out.
Sending it over.
Yeah.
I can see it both ways.
One way or another, we are going to deliver on age restrictions for these types of products.
Yeah. And then Thursday. So on Thursday, like I mentioned about the bill coming out, we also did we call it midweek sips, but here lately it's always been on Thursday. It's only 1 week because I was gone. Don't give me that crap. But right before I walked in, I just have to say, I got shit on. Literally standing outside of the building. And I feel something hit the top of my head.
Oh, no.
And as I wiped my head, it was just berries.
Are you sure?
Like, oh, no.
Are you sure it wasn't Gary Brewer?
I was hoping that it was like, the ice melting off of the building and I was standing on the end. No. Hit me square in the top of the head, so that was fun.
Figured it was
first
Gary
time
Brewer
that's ever happened.
Eating that banana with a spoon, you just threw a little piece at you.
I don't know. First time it happened, and I wanted to open up midweek sips with that, and then I was like, we'll save it for the podcast. But then after that,
I noticed your hair was a little damp and all. I didn't know it was because of all that.
I was in the bathroom sink wiping it and using Clorox wipes and everything else trying to get it out. It was bad. But after that, I had to testify on a judiciary committee in Kansas. I did it virtually.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
For a sextortion bill, which I ended up getting kicked off due to our great Wi-Fi at the State House right now. Towards the end, so I'm not 100% sure whether it went through or not, but I wasn't alone. It was additional parents that were testifying as well. So that was kind of emotional, and then I went ahead and headed home, trying to get some things done.
Yeah, there you go. Well, man, I think my Thursday was spent on healthcare. And we can talk about that in the rant segment of the podcast. But yeah, all things healthcare, and then came
it's
back to
PB on Thursdays, right?
This episode of Pints Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties.
Good old AI. That's what AI does whenever you say, make it sound like ODB.
So we wanted to talk about some current events going on, breaking news, whatnot.
Troubling news.
Well, and you and I were texting about this yesterday. This reel that got shared by the White House,
yes.
Right? It was by Donald Trump on his Truth Social, where he shared an election was stolen or election integrity video.
Yeah, showing the hacks in, and then at the end of it,
at
the end of it, without knowing, the next reel, the doom scrolling, right?
Yeah.
The next reel, the first images it shows is Michelle Obama and Barack Obama as monkeys. Their faces on a monkey.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, and this is why I think it is important to let things play out a little bit before you just jump to make a statement. Now, if I am, a African-American child, I see this, I'm going to be upset. No doubt about it. We've got to do better than that. But the intent, I don't believe, was to try and put it on there. Obviously, that was just not cut off the end of the reel, and that was auto-playing for the next one. But we did see, Senator Tim Scott came out. I think he was the first to issue a statement to state that it was the most racist thing that he had seen from this White House.
Yeah. Well, another thing is, maybe it was because it was Friday, too. I was not plugged in at all, so I didn't see any social media. It wasn't until late yesterday afternoon.
David Martin's video.
Where I even sort of picked up my phone, looked on social media, and saw I did see David Martin's statement, and I didn't know what he was talking about. And I'm like, what happened? And so, this dribble of information, I started trying to figure out what happened, because initially what I was thinking was, why would the White House or our sitting president just throw an image out there so detestable, right?
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. But then when I started digging into it, I saw that it was, he shared one video and then the auto scroll, and they didn't edit that out. So,
And that video might have started off with Michelle and Barack as monkeys, but it was showing everyone within the Lion King kingdom.
There was some
and it was
AI
showing
parody
Donald
video.
Trump as the lion.
Right.
So it was an AI generated image. But at the end of the day, what is important to say is that if this would have been one of our teachers, if this would have been someone in a professional setting, they would be held to a different standard. What I am disappointed in is that no one is really saying, this person accidentally did it, so now they are being punished or reprimanded, or if it was Trump himself that did it, there's no a statement of apology to say, hey, this is not how this appears.
Yeah, and again, just for me personally, I have always held, the office of the president in high esteem. I think I would just suggest that our president do the same, right? And what I mean by that is, you are the standard of which elected officials and other politicians, whether it's little old folks like state reps like Brandon and I, or whether it's governors. And I would just say, if you're going to set a standard of being an example, we just have to do better. And when we fall short of that standard, be able to admit it.
Yes. I think that's what's more important.
Correct it and move on. This thing of doubling down and saying Trump derangement syndrome, people, okay, maybe for some it is an overreaction, right? But
for others, it hits home. Senator Tim Scott's not anti-Trump.
Right. But all I'm saying is, as a parent, I sat down with my daughter last night and showed her the full Trump, how he shared one video and then it auto scrolled up.
Yeah.
And then I showed her that whole parody AI video of the Lion King stuff, just so she had some contextual framework of which she could make her mind up.
Instead of just thinking that our president posted, the first African-American president on the image of a monkey.
And so all I'm saying is, and I think you and I have talked about this a lot, we're not traditional politicians, and I know Trump isn't either, but...
Look, I'm far from the one that should be lecturing anyone on what to put on social media. But I do believe that whenever you're the president of the free world, you
Let's do better.
Try to do better.
And when we don't meet the standard,
Admit
it.
And that's one of the things that we've always loved about Trump, is that he's unapologetic, but he doesn't hesitate. Like, whenever you talk about affairs or anything else, he's not saying, didn't do it.
Right.
It was that realness that drew people towards Trump to begin with. And this is just a situation where we need some realness.
Right. And I do think that President Trump has been one of the most transparent presidencies in my recollection. And so in sort of remaining consistent with that, he needs to just, I think, come forward and admit, hey, look, made a mistake, or the staffer made a mistake.
Yeah.
Show some accountability, and then just show a little bit of sensitivity to a large segment of this country, right? Considering the history of this country and where we came from, just say, hey, look, this was a mistake, right?
Right.
We should do better. And again, he has done a lot, I think, for the black community, but that's no excuse.
Yeah.
That does not give him right to make this kind of mistake and not just say, hey, look, I own it, I apologize, and I'm going to do better.
Right. And that's all we can do. That was kind of my beef with the whole Freedom Caucus RJ thing.
Yeah.
There was no admitting that we were wrong. It's just double down.
So on that note, we do have some local news going on. The Senate passed out a bill that allowed for senators who announced retirement prior to March 1st
Yes.
that if they announce their retirement, that
Resignation.
Their resignation. Yeah, retirement.
Yeah.
Whatever. If they announce their resignation, even if it's effective later on in the year, that election would go as a normal in an election cycle.
Correct. And ultimately what that will do, and the bad thing is some of these news channels put this out here, throwing other senators' names in there that they're constantly trying to disparage. But this was done for our very own Senator Wes Clymer,
Yeah.
who's looking at it to save taxpayers $270,000 in a special election fee.
Yep.
And in a special election, not everyone's voice gets heard. Not as many people show up.
Yeah.
So this will fall within the regular House races, so you have more people at the polls. If anything, this is a good thing. This is the way it should be done instead of these special elections. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
and again, full transparency, the rumors are that when Wes announced that he was going to run for the U.S. Congress, these two guys, our names had been thrown
pulls away
out.
my backup plan.
Our names were thrown out there as potentials who were going to run for the South Carolina Senate. And I just want to announce for myself, folks, I'm not doing that. I'm enjoying the House. It is a little bit more my style. It's chaotic. It's rowdy. We have fun over there. And the Senate is a little more buttoned up.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually opinionated. We're not worried about offending someone with our opinions.
Yeah, and again, and Brandon, you and I have had these discussions of, hey, if you go to the Senate, you have more influence and power and whatnot. We're not here for that, folks.
No.
I never thought I'd be in the South Carolina House of Representatives, much less potentially run for the Senate. I'm enjoying where I'm at, and I don't think influence depends on the chamber of which you occupy.
Look, I'm the first to say, everyone that asked me, I said, look, if I lose my House race, yeah, I'm running for the Senate. Now this screws up my whole plan because now we're going to be running at the same time. So,
but I do think, and I applaud Senator Clymer for doing this because it allows an orderly transition. He announces his resignation, puts a date on it, and filing period is coming up here next month.
yeah.
And so we'll be able to see folks who want to throw their hat in the ring to be considered the next South Carolina senator here from York County.
Yeah.
So while it also saves tax dollars, I think it also takes advantage of and gives the people of this district an equal voice, right? Because special
That's the big
elections are
thing.
tough.
Yeah.
Special elections are tough, and a lot of times those results are skewed because it's happening, say, in a summertime or when people normally aren't accustomed to voting,
Yes.
right? And so I think this will give York County time to consider the options who are running to replace Senator Clymer, who's done a great job representing Rock Hill and York County, to vet candidates, listen to them, and then ultimately elect the next South Carolina
And
senator.
have more people out. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
That and the amount of money that it saves, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, so those are the two to the local breaking news things we want to talk about. What about next week? What you got?
Well, next week, I think that
You got Shazam?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
So I have not seen the calendar yet on what is coming up next week, but I would assume that will be it. I do have to speak at Furman University on Monday prior to going into session, and then have quite a few meetings already set up, but I have not gone through the committee work yet.
I do have on the floor, we're going to have a lot of things come up. Don't we have some business tax credit?
Yeah, so that actually went through Ways and Means.
Yeah.
And the big thing is that, and I'm going to read this for a second, but small businesses make up more than 99% of businesses in South Carolina and employ over 42% of our state's employees. This legislation that passed through Ways and Means of the House would be the first $10,000 of a small business assets. It would get a tax break on that.
Yeah.
That is huge. As someone that used to own a few small businesses, and you're talking about, just a few computers or whatever it may be, that adds up quickly. And those business taxes, we always talk about Act 388, that is what offsets. That's what causes us to have these fee in lieu of taxes. So this would be a tax break to the small businesses, which is very difficult to do, but we're doing it through Ways and Means.
Yeah, and again, I applaud this effort. I think Representative Brandon Newton out of Lancaster, is the primary sponsor on this. A lot of times we hear about these tax incentives and these feelos to recruit the bigger businesses. And I think
Right.
a lot of times our small businesses and medium-sized businesses just get sort of overlooked, even though they make up a large segment of the business community, right, in the tax base. So I think this is a good step in the right direction to give a little bit of tax relief to those small and medium businesses.
Well, and speaking of small business owners, our guest that we're about to have come on was a former small business owner that was involved, very knowledgeable about his industry. And, I think he is the key component of this episode. So I say that we go ahead and we introduce Representative Greg Ford, bring him on, and then we just talk about, Super Bowl Sunday, right?
Oh, wow. Oh, we're doing picks again?
Have you placed any bets yet?
I don't bet. I make sports predictions.
Sports predictions. All right.
So, yeah, in the next segment, we're going to hear from Representative Greg Ford in talking about this hemp bill that caused a lot of great debate on Wednesday. So
It's the way we should be.
That's right.
This episode is brought to you by Burns Automotive. When your ride needs help, don't stress. Call Burns. Honest work, fair prices, and service you can trust. From oil changes to major repairs, Burns Automotive keeps you rolling. Burns, where South Carolina drives with confidence.
All right. Welcome back to the show. As we talked about before, we had an issue here this week in the House regarding these hemp beverages, hemp-derived consumables, drinks, gummies, all this kind of stuff. And wanted to welcome Greg Ford to the program because he's got some background in this, and also, shared his compelling story about his son on Wednesday, which I think added an interesting wrinkle, a personal story to this issue. And so I thought it swung the room. I thought it really provided some humanity to this sort of policy discussion that we were having. And it just changed a lot of hearts to say, hey, you know what? We need to take some more time on this. So,
well, it showed us that we don't know everything. And actually having someone that knows it fully. And as I said before, whenever I first got in office, I'm an advocate for medicinal marijuana, especially for epilepsy. And as I began to learn, many of the hemp farmers are for regulating this stuff and heavily regulating it. They were the first to come to it. So,
yeah. So, Greg, introduce yourself and then talk about, before we even get into your legislative history, tell us your background in the hemp industry, sort of bring us up to, because you are a newly elected member in the House. Give us some of that professional experience that you have in the hemp industry, and then we'll sort of walk into the events of this week.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So thank you for having me on and speaking about this topic that's near and dear to my heart. So 2018, we had a hemp bill that come out. It's called the Farm Bill from the federal level that authorizes hemp. And I was able to get into it, actually looking for something special for my son to help with some medical issues that he had. So rewind a couple years prior to that, I was in the military and I wasn't able to get alternative medication or anything along those lines, specifically hemp or anything that dealt with cannabis in any way, shape, or form. 2017, I retired, so we was able to step into some different industries. Right around 2013, my son started having some seizures and some severe seizures. And one night he had a pretty severe seizure here at the house that I'm sitting in today. And he actually suffered some major I guess it would be setbacks in the mental side to where his body actually shut off from the seizure itself. So I ended up giving him CPR that day, got him going again. Started doing some in-depth conversations with his neurologist at MUSC, and started looking for some different options. They started giving him some stuff called risperidone, and that had an actual sedative reaction to him, to where he walked around like he was drunk for quite a while, and it didn't stop his seizures fully. Couple of days later or weeks later, I ended up giving him CPR again, so we had a rerun. So we dealt with that for quite a while. I've given him CPR twice here at the house, and got him going. And my wife and I just struggle with it. You know, it's very hard to have a son or a child that you try to help and you try to do whatever you can to advocate for them, and then you ended up having this situation here. So we dealt with that for several years, and then I ended up retiring from the military and ran into an individual that had a hemp farm, or starting a hemp farm, a license here in the state of South Carolina. And I went in there to actually help them just mow the fields, do some stuff out there, ride the tractor. I was retired. So we started using a couple products that he had, and we found that it helped with my son's seizures. And as I was working there more and more, I ended up going and helping him build his lab, ended up processing a lot of hemp. About 375,000 pounds is what we processed there. Made it into products. And then at some point, we had a disagreement, and I went and got my own hemp processing license in 2019 into 20. And then I processed my own and grew my own plants. We ended up growing right around 42 acres of our own, and then we had upwards of 160 acres total that we were managing or consulting with throughout the state of South Carolina, and actually Virginia, surprisingly. And we started messing with that a little bit, and then I made a product, and we were able to get some products to help my son. Went from severe seizures, once a week, to he has a small breakthrough right around every 3 months. So we worked backwards to find out what worked for him. We found what cannabinoids worked. We had like a THCV, I believe, high CBG, high CBC, something along those lines that was working for him to help. So I actually went backwards and started doing cross-pollination, genetically modifying the cannabinoid profiles of the plants. Once I got the plant right, we started doing a lot of testing, found that profile, and then I went into cloning so that all of my products were 100% the same all the way across, no matter how many times I grew these plants. So I understand a little bit about that. And
that's not the Rock Hill way of just growing it in a washing
getting out of
machine
it
in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to do, this was for my son, I wanted to make sure it was right, because the problem with seizures is once you find what works, if you have any ups or downs in that profile, you can actually exacerbate the seizures inadvertently, and we wanted to make sure we stayed away from that.
Yeah, and this is
So,
again, this was a compelling story that you were sharing on the house floor Wednesday. You didn't go into this much depth, but you did share that personal story, of which I can sort of sympathize with. Right, my youngest son deals with seizures and epilepsy, and we've had several breakthroughs, and we've had to deal with sort of just pharmaceutical drugs, Briviac, Clobsam, and some others, and that's what this personal inspiration that you've had with your son seems to, be shared with a lot of members. A lot of struggles or challenges that our kids are going through ultimately inspire us to try to. We all collectively will try to make a difference on the house floor, and I would say that's what you did on Wednesday. And so I know, because we've talked about this, especially this week. Walk us through what, because everyone, our two listeners, we've talked about before, we have a committee process in the House that starts with a bill gets a hearing date in a subcommittee. If it's passed out favorably from that sub, it goes to a full committee. If it's fortunate enough to get a favorable read in the full, it then goes to the House floor. And so walk us through, when you have these bills that are trying to regulate or ban hemp derived products, obviously that gets on your radar. That has has some personal concerns. How did that process? How was, you know, walk us through that experience with your amendment?
So I was sworn in on January 13th. That was my first day in the House, right after being elected. Shortly after that, was given a call by Representative Gil Gatch, and he asked me. He knew my situation. He knew my background from being right here, helping me with my campaign, and understood he understood that I had a familiarity with the hemp industry and with the product. So he asked me to go to what's called a subcommittee, and I was actually introduced to the subcommittee. I think it was like my second or third day in the House. I don't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday after I was sworn in on that Tuesday. And I sat down and they gave me the bills 4758, 4759, asked me to look over them. And as soon as I opened them up, I looked over at the chair, Jay Jordan, and asked him, I said, would you like for me to speak on these, in favor or oppose them? He goes, talk, about whatever you need to. So when it was my turn to talk on the subcommittee, I basically asked him to just slow the bill down, let me go get some wording because their wording wasn't 100%. They were going to inadvertently suck up all of the hemp market with anything that would limit access to, folks like my son or the veteran that has it for PTSD or the young lady or older lady that helped me on my campaign that helps her for her arthritis on her knees, things along those lines. And I was like, let me go get the wording right because it's devil's in the details. I walked out of that room to go to my committee meeting and they voted that bill out, both of them, to the full judiciary. So I went and got my amendments, did what I needed to do after talking to several industry leaders, finding out what they want. And I formulated a small amendment and gave it to one of the judiciary folks that was supposed to submit it, but he can't talk on the topic. So they would not allow me to talk. So they didn't accept my amendment and they went ahead and kicked it out and told me to go ahead and bring it to the House floor. After that happened, I went ahead and started doing a little bit more research, trying to get the wording a little bit closer to right. Had the legislative committee or legislative office get it into the appropriate amendment format and submitted it up there on the desk. And Wednesday night, we started off 4759. We tabled the adjourned debate on 4758, which is a full ban, and we started the debate on a partial ban because I believe they thought this would be an easy pass, or they thought they had the numbers. And when we got my amendment, I took a chance. That was probably, I'll tell you guys, that was probably the most vulnerable I've ever been, standing up there talking about my son. I'm very, very, very private about that. And one of the other members told me, he's like, you probably need to put that picture up there because, as you guys know, we've been in some meetings and I've stood up and talked about against these bills a little bit. And I was told I was coming off a little bit arrogant or cocky or abrasive or
You were
passionate.
using the right terms.
Yeah, that's kind of the words. So I was like, okay. And they told me I needed to soften it up just a little bit to explain why I have this passion and how I got into this area. So we took the chance and put the picture of my son up there, and everything went from there. I just told my story. If you guys listen to the report, I went up there. I've watched that video 3 different times from the time I started talking to the day that we, when we actually adjourned session. And I'm amazed at what happened. I am totally amazed.
Greg, the first time I ever spoke from the well, I got up there crying.
Yeah.
I'm talking about my son. So
And I think you
I understand. Yeah. I asked Heath and some of the other guys that stand behind me, and Heath was like, damn it, you're going to make me cry on camera.
Yeah. And so if you go
So,
back and look at his video, the bill that was inspired by his son, and he asked, you know, some close friends to stand behind him. And he said, hey, man, y'all may need to help me. And I said, the only way we're going to help you is if you do not turn around and look at a bunch of us crying because, we were inspired as well by the personal story. And again,
yeah.
It was reminiscent of.
But that's what we're doing down there. We
Yeah.
are affecting people's personal lives, and we've got to quit worried
Yes,
about
sir.
being a politician and being a leader and standing up for what's right.
Yeah, and Greg,
You,
I
you,
appreciated your story on Wednesday. A lot of times during that debate, I was over in the Senate because we had passed a similar bill
He's
like
always
this,
in the Senate. Don't let
and
him
I
lie
was
to you.
running over there. So when I got back, um, because I knew Greg had presented his amendment and all those things, I am actually at his desk with him and Gary Brewer trying to put my card in and vote. And, because remember, and again, we're going to get technical, we this was an actual time where we were trying to get the bill recommitted, like truly recommitted. And traditionally, that is a tool that's used to kill a bill.
Right.
And so I'm voting no to recommit. And Brewer and Ford were like, no, 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 we're trying to recommit it so we can do work. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, right. Like for real. You know what I mean? I mean, it was, man, it was, and there was a lot of wires getting crossed there. I mean, when you're dealing with this spur of the moment, man, it was,
But we do have it recommitted now.
yeah.
So hopefully we can make those
we do.
changes, and then
We-
we can do what our law enforcement's asking us to do to make something that's enforceable, to keep it out of the hands of the people that should not have it, but also not harm those
Yes, sir.
that it is actually truly making a difference in their life.
Well, and let me ask you, Greg, just boil it down for plain language for like our listener to understand. What is a reasonable regulation that you're seeking? What is it that you really want to where we can provide for medical cases like your son's, but also protect, say, the typical youth child population from being able to walk into a store and grab an intoxicating, whether it's a beverage or a gummy?
So we got two things happening here. We have intoxicating cannabinoids, the Delta 9s, Delta 8s, Delta 10s, HHCs, whatever. And then we have the CBD side of it. Then we had the farm bill that gives us 0.3% Delta 9 THC, or there's changes some wording that has THCA included in there. THCA, I was talking on the floor. I didn't go too far into this, but THCA, when you do something called decarboxylation, that's through heat and vacuums, it drops an amino acid off, changes 87.7% of that chemical over to a Delta 9, and then the rest is broken down into other chemicals. We want to take that and add it into to where it's total THC to the 0.3% or somewhere in that realm, because that'll match what the federal level has at the farm bill. And then it still gives a trace amount, which when I started writing this amendment, everybody thinks I was talking about just wanting to legalize people getting high. Anyone that's in the industry that talked to me in the last 2 weeks, the first thing I said is this bill is not to get people high, period. That is not my goal. I need to make sure that we protect the people who has these things, uses this product for alternative therapeutic sources, and they only need trace amounts. So I went back and pulled a bunch of my COA, certificate of analysis, of stuff that I've actually grown, processed, to see what I was doing and compare it to that. So, and we basically want a trace amount of some of these intoxicating or hallucinogenic molecules in there, but it's going to be at such a level that you won't be able to be high off of it. So I put in there 10 milligrams. And the reason I did that is Chairman Jordan was okay with legalizing 5 milligrams. Well, 5 milligrams would have killed half of the drink industry in the state of South Carolina. So I went and talked to them, and they said 10 is probably the realm of where most people buy. So I was like, why don't we do 10? And then we put full spectrum in there, which CBD molecules counteract the psychoactive side of it. And it would still drop it down to roughly 5% or 5 milligrams per bottle or drink container, can.
Right.
So whatever the serving is. And then we still get to the same area, but we're giving them a little bit more leeway. So I wrote my bill to where, or amendment to where it would bring back in what's called full spectrum, which is straight off the plant, or broad spectrum, where you take the full spectrum and you do what's called short path distillation, and you pop out the first molecule, which is Delta 9, and you drop it down to where people don't pee hot, basically is what we do. And it'll allow them to have that same trace amounts, but it caps the amount that they can put in there, because I put 10 milligrams total THC, all psychoactive in there. So they can't go around and do 10 milligrams of Delta 9 and then
Right.
1,000 milligrams of HHC. It encapsulated all of that. And then the industry talked to me, and I was actually against this when we were talking in the room. And they said, "Why don't we do a registry?" And I was like, "No, I don't want the government to be regulating this." And I sat on it for about, I don't know, 24 hours. And I come back and I say, "Guys, this will help us because it'll give law enforcement the tools because we'll register every single item and it'll regulate out all the bad actors." And here's the reason why. I went over to a shop right here in Cottageville and talked to one of the shops there. And they had a vape cartridge that was brought in, a rechargeable vape cartridge or a non-rechargeable disposable vape cartridge. And they tested it through law enforcement and it was supposed to be like Delta 10 and it come back with a high level of cocaine in it. Okay, so we need to stop stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
So, period, we need to get it out of the hands. But
Cottageville.
the bill, Cottageville,
Oh.
outside of Walterboro. So the bill that Chairman Jordan had would just take the drinks and put it into the liquor stores, but all this stuff we're still not testing to make sure it's not in that drink because I can take that same crude and put it in that drink and it still does the same thing, right? So I wanted to encapsulate all of that and make sure it's safe. My biggest concern is safety for all the state of South Carolina, not necessarily adults or children. All of it was saying, I don't want it, in the hands of children. And we heard about the 12-year-old riding off on his bike from the 7-Eleven, blah, got it. That's happening. But we had the same thing, the kids riding off with a pack of cigarettes. We're not really focused on that. We had the same thing, a case of beer. We're not focusing on that. But here's the other side. We haven't even had a discussion, and I'll bring this up when we redo this bill. Have you guys heard of Kratom?
Oh,
Yes.
God, yeah. And said, I
Okay.
know.
Well,
Chapman has always been fighting to ban Kratom.
Okay,
got a
so
bill to put it behind the counter last year.
Yeah.
Yep. So my amendment, when I go back and rework it, I think I'm going to try to focus it on intoxicating chemicals versus CBD and THC, and I'm going to bring in kratom and something called O7OH, which is a kratom extract,
708.
which is worse than it's called
Yep.
liquid heroin. Okay, so I'm going to
Yeah.
try to incorporate that, and then we have something now called Whippets. Have you guys heard about that? It's a new thing that the kids are buying. It's
I
in
didn't know you could
pink,
buy it. I just thought
little
that was
containers
huff.
with bears.
Yeah, turn it.
Yep. So I'm
Well,
going to try
well,
to
I'll
I'm
drop
going to try
an
to get
F-bomb.
all that incorporated at the same time.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get it all incorporated at the same time. I have a meeting with Mr. O'Neill that does the sled enforcement, and then they're bringing over one of the sled officers from the laboratory, and then Chief Keel is going to come, and then we have a couple other folks that's going to come that has some information in these areas, and I'm going to sit down with them and tell them, what would you like to do? I don't want this stuff on the streets, flat out. I don't. But if we're going to legalize it, let's legalize it. If you want to let people get high, let them get high. Don't let adults be adults. If you want to limit it, limit it. So let's get it to where people don't get high, but there's still the therapeutic process or therapeutic access and move along, but we need to make it safe.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to walk into the meeting with next week, not to get people high. The 10% or 10 milligrams, that was still sketchy on my side. I was more worried about the oils and the gummies going away and moving the drinks from the 1,800 shops that are now and moving it over into the liquor store, which is government displacement of a product or government takeover of a product and giving it to another industry. That is not okay with me. That's not what we're here for.
Now, I will say I'm okay with it going into the liquor stores as opposed to the convenience stores, just because we separate what liquor is and what beer is. And if we can do that, if that's what's going to allow us to regulate and keep it legal, then I'm perfectly fine with that because we're ensuring that anyone getting it is 21 and older.
Well, and
So
that is
we
what
have
you'll
two-
hear from SLED in just talking about hemp beverages now, just hemp beverages
Yep.
was the the retail marketplaces, your Publix, Food Lions, Harris Teeters, they feel like 5 milligram hemp drinks should be allowed in the stores. Anything over that
Th-
should be in ABC. The concern that SLED had, and I'm
th-
sure, Greg,
th-
you'll hear this again, is being able to effectively enforce that all across the state, right? And so I
th-
applaud you, though, Greg. Already after this conversation and the debate on the floor this Wednesday, you're already talking to law enforcement about, okay, let's all get around the table and then let's hear your side, you hear my side, and see if there's some common ground where we can, you know, get this thing where we want it.
we'll come out with something good for everybody. I'm not going in there with a nefarious demeanor,
Yeah.
or I'm a very black and white person. I don't play games. I'll tell you
Yeah.
exactly what my goal is, and then however we get there. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm a farmer. In fact, as soon as we get done with this, I'm changing my shirt and I'm going to my farm and playing with my horses. So I'm a realist, and I'm still new, and I believe, you know, I still have that, you know, connected to my constituents, and I have a lot of these folks that use this product, and I actually sold a lot of product to these individuals. But I want to be clear, I'm not in the market anymore, so this is not for me. You know,
Right.
I am nowhere in it. I don't have a permit. I don't process. You know, I have the product that I made for my son. I've got plenty of that for, you know, a significant amount of time. And if I need to buy more product, I'll go to Virginia and buy it. Because where I actually have my plants, my clones went up there, and they're still growing my same product.
Gotcha.
So I'm able to get a renewal.
Greg, I want to thank you
Yes, sir.
for, I mean, I believe it's important for us to have experts in an industry within the body. Just like you said, you're not a politician. And whenever
Yeah.
you run for office, you've got 10 million issues that everyone wants you to push. And we all have our core values that we can stand behind. But to have someone
Yes,
come
sir.
in whenever we're dealing directly with a bill with the expertise is, you know, and that's your passion. I have a mission till the day I die. You know, you've got a mission and you've got your situation with your kids. Same thing with Heath.
Mhm.
And if we can focus on our specific industries and lean on one another, you know, I was asked, and I was in DC whenever most of the debate was going on. I was trying to rush to get back. And whenever I got in, I was one of the ones on, you know, I got the vote in to recommit it. But everyone asked me, you know, where are you sitting? I said, wherever Greg Ford goes with this is where I'm sitting. He's the guy with the knowledge. So he's the guy that I'm trusting. And until I can, you know, debate him, how do I sit here and say that he's not wanting to do what's best for the citizens of South Carolina?
Yeah, so I agree, Guffey. I thought it showed this past Wednesday evening. Greg, thank you for your courage. I think we saw the process really on display, right? It didn't go the way we all thought it was going to go. But like Guffey said, you have a unique perspective and expertise in the industry. And I thought the body respected it. And so appreciate you giving us your compelling personal story, but also your professional experience. And again, thanks for joining Pints and Politics on this sensitive but critical issue here in South Carolina.
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for having me. And I will echo we saw the actual process work on Wednesday night. Even though it took us for a while to get there, we saw the process work. Even as a new person, and when I stood up there and talked, you know, that was my 10th day in the chamber. I don't know if you guys realize that was
Yeah,
literally
wow.
my 10th day ever being in that chamber. And I'm up there talking about my son on a topic. And a lot of people see it, and we were talking about this prior to us coming on. A lot of people see it as I was challenging leadership. And I don't want it to be spun that way, because that's not what I was doing in any way, shape, or form. I was just giving my side of the story, or my opinion on the bill, using the process, and
Yeah,
it
and
didn't
I
happen the
think
way that it
we're
happened.
gonna hopefully learn through the process and trusting this process. We're gonna give South Carolinians a better piece of legislation. So,
So
um,
100%. I guarantee you, whatever comes out the other side of this is going to be much, much, much better
Yep.
for everybody. in
Thank
South
you,
Florida.
Greg.
Pull up a chair, pour it heavy.